And so I'm a new member of the Convention and Visitors Bureau team, so haven't had an opportunity to meet you yet, but
we try to keep a very low profile.
I like it. I hear that, but I did catch a great website, so I was doing my little homework trying to just get to know at least the names of the council. I was looking. That was me.
Good.
But I noticed you spent some time in Illinois, Western Illinois University.
I went there from
more people.
I went there from 1977 to 82. Really the best 6 years of my life.
And Tennessee, so I traveled.
I would like to
North Carolina, University of Tennessee, and then I also was headquartered in Springfield, Illinois. So my wife and I from St. Louis, and we just moved back to the low country. I never used it for 5 years.
Well, Springfield's seems to be a little tough.
We've had some real challenges. It's been, having some from Charleston and
Don't let it.
wonderful economic in the low country. I had an appreciation for the challenges they were facing, and it's also
Well, the corruption
What did they? Did the Bears
in Illinois is
I was in healthcare, and you can imagine immediately started getting
I'm glad we escaped back in 09 when I got out.
Between them and getting back to their car.
What they tell you is don't turn your back.
They can
Turn your back
outrun
and run, and they think you're afraid.
They're a lot faster.
to withstand more so than
So you want to look them in the eye.
whereas in Springfield it was kind of
I've got bear spray.
state health
But what does the bear spray do? Oh, it's like a mace.
No, I understand the Decatur better. I thought Springfield had done better with the Lincoln stuff, but I haven't been there since they remodeled and redid stuff.
it's impressive.
As it wasn't when I took my kids there.
But that's it, and that's the challenge of downtown where a lot of this still struggling. I just wanted to nice to meet you.
It's white out. I answered anything.
It's white out. Think of white out.
I stopped being sensitive in third grade.
His personality is a little bit like that. So.
Gentle, I got a bad finger. That's
No.
Why the cops? I don't see any policemen. I see fire.
Oh. Oh, okay.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and call this meeting to order, and if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The first item is the approval of the minutes for the Town Council meeting on May 1st. Do I have a motion to approve?
So approved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Anybody have any comments, changes?
I sent a couple to Pedro. That was
Okay.
it.
Anybody else have anything?
No.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes are approved. Mayor's update. I've just got a couple quick things. Some of you, I think a couple of people attended, and we had a good turnout last Wednesday. We had a candidates afternoon, and had the opportunity for the two candidates for Charleston County seat that represents Kiowa, Seabrook, Folly Beach, a piece of Johns Island, and a piece of James Island. Joe Quayle, who is the current incumbent, and Jenny Costa Honeycutt, who is the challenger. This is for the Republican primary, but you may or may not be aware at the moment there is not a Democratic candidate, so there's not a Democratic primary. So I think it's likely that this primary is pretty critical, because whoever were to be the nominee would most likely be unopposed or the likely candidate in November. I thought we had a really good event. The two candidates, I think, had a really good opportunity. They responded to about a dozen questions from Seabrook's Mayor Ron Ciancio and myself. I think they really had an opportunity to distinguish themselves differently from each other, both in terms of their style and approach and views, and also their answers to specific issues. The only thing I want to highlight is that the primary is next week, Tuesday. For Kiowa residents, the voting will be here this year since the Sandcastle is still closed. And while we don't have a lot of voters in a primary, we have the potential, I think, on Kiowa and Seabrook combined to actually have a real impact on the outcome of this race. So I know I only have a few people here, but what I would say is that it would be great if our residents would pay attention to this primary race and would go out and vote. And if we could do anything we can to sort of encourage residents here to come out next Tuesday, that would be a good thing. If you look back at the little survey that we did a while back on what kinds of things were important to our residents, a couple of things that were high on that list were things like roads on Johns Island, transportation, the ability to get on and off of Kiowa and through Johns Island to Charleston, concerns about the development of Johns Island. Well, those are all issues that the Charleston County Council is accountable for and can do something about. So if we'd like to see some action on those items, this race is pretty important. So I realize I'm speaking to a small crowd, but if you could go out and get that message out and get a turnout for next week, I think that would be good. Secondly, I just wanted to update the council on, if you recall last fall, DHEC OCRM had proposed changes to the 40-year setback, or the jurisdictional line, which impacts where along the beach people can build or how they can affect their properties if they're adding on, reconstructing, or whatever. A public comment period had been initially set last year for December. That public comment period has been pushed back twice. Originally it was moved to April, now it's at July 15th. And the date right now that the line is going to be established for Kiowa is sometime in September, I believe in September. The town had informally talked with OCRM at the time. If you recall, we had Coastal Science and Engineering do a study for us to help us understand whether we thought the proposed lines made sense or not. We had some informal conversations, but in light of the amount of time that's gone by, last week the town did submit to OCRM actually a formal letter in which we laid out our position specifically. And I think, as we verbally talked many months ago, we think that the FEMA's lines as they relate to Kiowa are in error, that they don't properly reflect where our dunes, our primary dunes are, and that there are also other sort of technical issues. Specifically, what we recommended is that DHEC simply return the 40-year setback line to the existing current 2009 line, so essentially go back to, or essentially stay with what we have. Except that we also know, while I've not ever seen them, we know that some private property owners have separately appealed, on which they have the right to do, to ask for OCRM to extend the line actually more seaward than the 2009. And in our communications, the position we took is that any of those private owner appeals should be considered on the merits of the appeal, and just because we were recommending to go to 2009, if they made an appropriate case that it should go more seaward, that OCRM should rule on the basis of the consideration of those facts. So in other words, we weren't trying to prejudice the views of any private entity that was separately appealing. So that letter's gone out just so we made sure that the town is formally on record. The last thing, which our attorney will be here late, and I will let him later give the details, but Ken Gunnels, who was our former treasurer and one of the two employees who have been indicted for wire fraud, Ken had initially pleaded innocent to those charges. There was a hearing in Charleston last week. Ken has officially changed his plea to guilty, and therefore will enter the sentencing phase of this for him. There has been at this point no change that we are aware of with respect to Tamika Rucker. And when Dwayne attended that hearing, so when he's here a little bit later, he can sort of fill you in on the discussion and answer any questions you'll have about the sort of the next steps and what involvement we might have. That's all I've got. So with that, I would turn to citizens' comments. If we have anybody that has a comment related to an item that's on the agenda today, please head on up to the podium. I don't see a rush, so I think that invitation is closed. Okay, so with that, Diana, I'm going to ask you to introduce the players in our presentation. The only comment I want to make is that as you see on the agenda, we have representatives of the Charleston Area Convention and Visitors Bureau here. This presentation is something that between Diane and I, we've asked them to do for us. They're an important part of our of us here at Kiowa. We have obviously a full-time employee of the Convention Bureau here. We provide facilities. They do a lot of important work for us and for our entities. And we haven't really had a lot of chance in the last few years to really hear from them and get a better understanding of what they do and how we interface and maybe some ideas of things that we should be doing differently. So, Diana,
Okay.
I'll let you introduce. And
Well, we have 5 guests here today from the Charleston Visitors Bureau, and they're going to give us an update on their programs, their budgets, and their current initiatives. And Craig explained a little bit of this, but I was just going to say, for those of you that may not understand our relationship with the Charleston Visitors Bureau, they're a not-for-profit destination marketing organization that helps communities, such as Kiowa, with our travel and tourism strategies, and a portion of their funding is provided by our accommodation taxes from Kiowa and 8 other local governments. One of the ways we partner, of course, like Craig just mentioned, is with the CVB's Visitors Bureau in our lobby. And I was going to introduce each one of you. I think Lori, are you the only one speaking? Okay. So Lori Smith is Vice President of Operations. And we have Chris Campbell, who's Director of Communications and Strategic Planning. You've been with the organization, 3 or 4 months now? Suzanne Wallace is Director of Education and Training and was the previous Director of Sales. Angie Day, who lives out here on Johns Island, is the Assistant Director of Sales. And then Walter McCants, who's the Director of the Visitor Services, and of course is responsible for the Bureau in our lobby. So Lori? Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you for having us today. I'm Laurie Smith. We are thrilled to be here at Kiowa with all of you. I do have to express our leader, Helen Hill, would like to be here today. She was called away on an economic development initiative that the state is working on, and so she regrets not being here, but I am very grateful to be here on our behalf. Our partnership with Kiowa is very important, and I really want to thank Councilmember Mezzanotte for inviting us out. She serves on our board, and we're grateful for the opportunity to have dialogue, to talk about what we can be doing better, what we're doing well, and how we're going to move forward in our partnership. And I'm going to be watching my time. I was given 15 minutes. So if you see me looking, I'm not checking emails or voicemails or texts or anything. I want to be respectful of your time. So that being said, we want to address the questions that were asked of us. So this is just a quick agenda of what we'd like to cover in the next 15 minutes. We'll allow some time for Q&A, so if there are questions, please make sure to ask them. If there's input, please give it to us, because we are an open book and we are curious to know what you're thinking as we go. So the mission of the Convention and Visitors Bureau is to unify and lead our industry, essentially putting our community out there to the face of the world as a destination. The key words here are unify and lead. It's very important in our effort that we present ourselves as a united front to the world. So some fast facts about who we are as an organization. We are a 501c6. We're a nonprofit entity. We're a business league. Our goal is to raise the economic interests of the community, specifically via tourism. We serve 9 local governments, and each of those 9 governments has a seat on our board. We have 27 board members. Tom Bewley, who is at the resort, also serves on our board, and we were grateful to have Roger Warren serve as our chairman of the board for several years. The CVB has 54 full-time employees, and just to give you a benchmark in relationship to other organizations that do what we do around the country, an average full-time employment is 61 employees. So we do what we do, and we try to be very lean with our staffing and our overhead. Our annual budget is just under $20 million. Now, of that $20 million, this is a quick snapshot of where our revenues come from. A full 38% of our revenues come in the form of private dollars. We have over 600 members in the community, and that's hotels, restaurants, that's any business that is positively impacted by tourism, whether directly or indirectly. Over 600 members, and we have programs to benefit those members. So that's a large portion of our overall income. 26% of our income comes to us through the state of South Carolina through a grant that's called Destination Specific. It is meant specifically to promote tourism in the state. And then 36% of our overall revenues come to us in the form of accommodations tax through 9 local funding municipalities. Now, just to quickly hit on accommodations tax, I won't delve too deeply into this slide, but depending upon where you're staying in Charleston County, a visitor is going to pay anywhere from 13 to 14% in sales tax and accommodations tax. Specific to accommodations tax, you can see on the right-hand side of the slide that we've got a 2% state tax, a 2% county accommodations tax, and depending upon which municipal government you're in, it can be anywhere from 0 to 2%. Kiowa has a 1% local accommodations tax. The portion that fits our budget comes from this 2% state accommodations tax that is collected in the municipal government. So let's dive in a little bit to that accommodations tax, that 36%. We believe in synergy, that collectively we are more than the sum of our parts. It's really the diversity of our community that make us wildly interesting to the rest of the world. And this regional approach gives us buying power to collectively and collaboratively promote our community. A rising tide truly floats all boats. So one of the things that I was asked, and I actually had to look this up, is how our partnership came to be. And what I found, because it was before my time, is that Mayor Lib Melvin in the early 90s and Town Council actually made the choice of the Bureau to promote them as a DMO. And seeing that Charleston's success and Kiowa's success were clearly very tied in. So we have been partners ever since that time.
Okay.
We know that competition is only growing for tourism dollars and for tourism business. And so it's important that we remain competitive because we have a lot of really well-funded destinations out there. Some of the most obvious would be Savannah, Amelia Island, Hilton Head, Asheville. Those are just a few quickly in our drive market. But it's important for us to be able to compete with those destinations. Looking at our expenses, you can see that the lion's share of our expenses go towards marketing, advertising, media, public relations, and towards our group sales efforts. We, of course, have some operating overhead, but I want to, before we hit on the largest aspect of the pie, I want to hit quickly on visitor services because it's the one that that you see every day. The Charleston area has 40,000 employees that have a career in hospitality and tourism. 40,000 employees are feeding their families through this industry. Tourism is clearly an important economic driver in the community. However, tourism has a specific fit into the fabric of our community. This is our home, and quality of life is important. And it is through our visitor centers that we have the opportunity to really influence quality of life. We know that if we can get face-to-face with a visitor, that we have an opportunity to help them understand how to visit our community. And Nay Middleton, who is our staff member out here, is an excellent person to serve that purpose. We've had some conversation about perhaps extending hours or days of the week, doing some things a little bit differently. Since certainly the location is very prime, we're happy to have those conversations and to talk about what we might do to take next steps forward with the new beautiful facility. Mayor Weaver had also asked that we get the word out to residents about what services that we can perform here for your residents. And so that, again, is something that we'd like to explore. We do some ticketing here, how we can expand on that to provide services for your residents that makes sense. We are certainly open to discussing. So let's talk about marketing and advertising in particular. So why do we advertise? People are just going to come here, right? Well, we advertise because if we don't target an audience, we're going to get who we get. Our target visitor has a higher level of income, they have a higher level of education, and they fit into a demographic that has a significantly higher disposable income when they travel. The estimated spend for our media, marketing, sales initiatives is about $17 million of the $20 million that we have. And those come through various platforms: print, broadcast, billboard, digital, online. Some examples, and you'll know all of these, but some examples as it relates to travel publications are Travel and Leisure magazine, Condé Nast Traveler, Afar magazine, and Departures. Departures magazine, and some of you may receive this magazine, I don't. It is American Express Platinum Card Holders publication, but clearly that's a very affluent group that we want to be in front of. Lifestyle publications that are very important to our marketing strategy include Garden and Gun, Coastal Living, Architectural Digest, Southern Living, Bon Appetit, and Vanity Fair. All of our campaigns are designed to create visibility, awareness, and really the overall perception of the region. We're not looking for a shotgun approach. We're not looking for a large volume. We're looking to attract visitors who are interested in our 6 pillars. Mayor Weaver asked me this earlier on the spot, and I could only think of 5 off the top of my head. So I'll think of the 6th in the shower. But those 6 pillars that we rest on are outdoor and recreation, food and culinary, history, shopping, what am I forgetting? Family and culture. So our visitors fit into one of those 6 pillars. If they're interested in our area, they're going to fit in there somewhere. I encourage you to visit explorecharleston.com too, because there's a lot of information on there as it relates to itinerary planning and videos that lead to our island and resort communities. And we'll talk quickly in just a minute about charlestonareabeaches.com, which is more specific to Kiawah Island. This particular 2-page spread in Southern Living gives you a sense of what we're trying to accomplish through sort of a in-town and out-of-town strategy. It gives you an idea of how these concepts work together strategically. So the regional ad captures various unique characteristics of our region here, such as island, beaches, recreation, even dining. And then here in the Garden and Gun ad, we're going to narrow it down to a singular pillar where we're looking at outdoor type activities. And this creative was actually shot here on Kiawah Island. CharlestonAreaBeaches.com was created because our islands are such an important part of the mix that we sell as our community. This revamped site was relaunched in April, and it's used exclusively to promote year-round interest on the island communities. We know that business is busy in the summer, and apparently there are fewer downtimes than there used to be. But the purpose here is to promote year-round interest in the island, not just beaches, because you have something special at Kiowa in that the island lifestyle is a very specific, desirable lifestyle. So there's a lot of information on this site to be digested. Certainly we have a close relationship as it relates to events. We've partnered in all of the major events that have been out here and happy to do so, and very much looking forward to 2021. You know, these opportunities are such that, and Roger Warren has made these happen in a way that put our community on the world stage. So these are tremendous opportunities for us as a community. So media validates the paid marketing message. Media for us is unpaid, earned media. You can't get most editorial coverage through a checkbook. It comes mainly through relationships, and that's what our media team works to do, is to build relationships with publishers, with editors, with writers, so that they're constantly open to the door of saying what is happening new in your community. And that is a really, really important focus of our media team. Certainly, Kiowa has received a ton of mentions over the past year, but there have been 57 noteworthy mentions in just the last 12 months alone. And two specific ones I wanted to mention to you today. One came through U.S. News, where Kiowa was named 30 small beach towns. That should be on your radar. Their readership is 24 million. And then Kiowa, the resort, and the sanctuary were all highlighted in Travel and Leisure's article that focused on the 7 amazing South Carolina beach destinations with 3 million visitors. An important aspect of our public relations mix comes in the form of social media. And social media has become really an important piece of an overall promotional strategy. It's hard to capture and to understand, and to many it's nebulous, but it is, if you have to be out there on social media. Between our platforms, we have 300,000 followers, and that's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. And this platform really gives us a flexible way to be able to get in front of visitors if we see a trough period that's coming up sooner than we'd like. It's a way for us to engage something and to do it quickly. We also have a blog that I wanted to mention. Our #1 blog over the course of the last year was 5 of the happiest seaside towns in America, featuring Kiowa, and it generated 117,000 unique visits. So there's clearly interest out there in the island lifestyle. We also have a major focus on group sales. Now, group business is important for different reasons from leisure travelers. Group travelers are going to be paying more because they're going to be renting rooms and facilities. They're going to be purchasing more food and beverage because they're doing it for large groups. So the footprint that they can leave on a facility is really great, and it's an important part of our tourism mix. Angie Day and her team work year-round at doing nothing but luring group business to our area. 4 of the shows that we've mentioned here focus specifically or very beneficial to Kiowa and focus in on the incentive travel markets as well as association business. High-end leisure is really important, of course. There was a time when people thought that travel agents were on their way out. The travel agents they would not be in existence much longer. But now that there's so much information online, it's difficult to discern what's out there. And so high-end travelers are once again returning to someone that they trust to help them plan their vacations. And this is a market that Kiowa knows and handles very, very well. So moving into future opportunities, there are a ton, but I am running out of time. Our organization is evolving from what is a DMO, Destination Marketing Organization, into a DMMO, Destination Marketing and Management Organization, because we know that some of the issues in the community we need to have a role in bringing solutions to. For instance, our issues around workforce development, which I know Kiowa can certainly attest to. We need to find employees, we need to keep employees, we need to train employees, and we have a responsibility in that realm. As it relates to transportation and infrastructure, roads are an issue. Roads are an issue. There was a time when the airport was an issue and air service was an issue. Our organization became involved with the Aviation Authority, and we now have 28 nonstop, so we now have service to 28 nonstop airports. There was a time when it was cost prohibitive and it cost us business because traveling through our airport was so expensive. Those times have changed. This year we expect 4.4 million people through the airport, which is almost double what it was in 2010. And the price per ticket is down about 20% since Southwest entered our market in 2011. We talked briefly about the short-term rental issue. Every community is struggling with how to manage short-term rentals, and specifically I'm talking here about rentals through Airbnb or Home and Away, although I realize that there are those who are going through more traditional outlets. But every community is deciding how they want to handle this. Some are wanting to bring people into just in line with they want business licensing and they want to bring people into compliance. Other communities are becoming more enforcement oriented, and so we're working now with the county on a platform that would allow us to form at least the baseline to determine who's got a 4% tax rate, who's got a 6% tax rate, and then each individual municipality can decide how they want to handle it from there. But we know that it's an issue that isn't going away. People are traveling this way now, and so how do we tackle it as a community? Certainly, regional planning is paramount. Every sector in our economy is growing, and many of the issues that we face as a community are issues of success and issues of growth. But certainly, they cross municipal lines, and we are excited to be a part of the solution moving forward, and just happy to be here today. I am over my time limit by 2 minutes, so I apologize, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have or provide feedback.
Questions?
This isn't really a question, but Helen told me a story the last time we were there, and Jimmy, I think you were involved with this, but she said the only reason that we have service, a direct service to, I think it's Boston, is because they couldn't get the airline to agree to that service based on the statistics they had from our workforce. But I think they came to you, Jimmy, and you helped them somehow or other identify how many people in Kiowa came from Boston, and that was enough to throw it over whatever number the airline was looking for, and that's when they agreed to do the direct flight to Boston, was because of Kiowa and our involvement in identifying people that were flying from out here.
It's really important for us to have a handle on what those business needs are in the community, because we know that we can go into a market and stimulate interest to travel here. We've done it. And in fact, our demographic of where people are traveling from has changed. When I started at the Bureau, we were a drive market destination. Now our top markets are direct flights, and that's changed in a short period of time. But you're exactly right in that we need to understand who's living here and what their travel needs are, because in order for those flights to be successful, those planes have to be full, and so that's a very important element that we seek to understand.
You know, I asked this question of a couple of you at lunch, but is there a model for tourists that are talking to you all about Kiowa, and is there a set of things they're looking for? Are they coming here for the beach, for the golf, for the resort and its amenities, for the environment? Is it everything, or do you see a certain set of characteristics around Kiowa that are most critical to driving people here?
Well, clearly Kiowa has its own personality. Each municipal government that we represent has their own unique personality, and I think that's part of what makes us so wildly interesting. But yes, sir, this island community is very different than the other island communities that we promote. It's a crown jewel. people that are coming to Kiowa are looking for an island escape. They're looking for, I think Angie said it best, an exclusivity. They're looking for, it's just a different type of island traveler than some of the other communities that we serve. And you can very quickly get to that by getting a sense of what they're looking to accomplish on their vacation. And some go from vacation to becoming homeowners. But yes, sir, it's a very exclusive, high-end demographic that is your Kiowa vacationer and group business. Would you like to speak to that, Annie, or?
Well, I might mention too, for even our visitors that are inquiring about the historic district as well, many of them also want to incorporate Kiowa into that element. So we are seeing more and more, there's not just one mold. They're really want to experiencing, again, that unity we were talking about with the Charleston area and what makes it so interesting. So certainly, I think I mentioned Kiowa lends itself, the way it's designed to some very high-profile groups, just from security, and again, it's the exclusivity. So, but we're excited to see that they are, even if they're visiting downtown, they will extend their stay a couple days and come out to Kiowa and enjoy all the amenities. But I do think it is the environment and the amenities that they're seeking.
Okay. All right.
The only other thing I was going to ask is, could you expand a little bit on the short-term rentals and who you're working with College of Charleston on that, and what exactly
We are. Well,
finding?
we have a few stats here. Specifically, there are 650 short-term rentals active on Kiowa Island that are not part of, say, a Pam Harrington or the resort, but that are active through Airbnb or something of that nature. We are working with the College of Charleston. Dr. Brumby McLeod at the college has been working with a program called STR Helper. And the program essentially scours the internet and finds listings and is able to geographically work to combine some data on the governmental side and essentially pare down who is using this platform. And the College of Charleston has been working very specifically with the city of Folly Beach. Their focus has been on bringing people into compliance, so working to get business license up to date, making sure that people are paying taxes, essentially making sure that there's a level playing field, that folks who are using rentals are playing by the same set of rules as our other lodging entities. Whereas the city of Charleston is looking to be more enforcement oriented. And so this platform would, at the very base, tell us who's utilizing these programs, and it scours the internet daily. So we know each day who's renting, and does that renter have a 4% or 6% tax assessment? That matters in the city of Charleston because you can't rent unless you're, you have, right. So anyway, it's way more complicated than my little head can explain in 2 minutes. But there are programs out there that can help to identify who the people are that are promoting their property this way. And then it allows the government to decide how we want to use it.
Well, and I think between you and Dorota, we want to sort of learn more about what's going on with that, because we're in the same process of trying to identify our rentals and try to focus on compliance. So,
right, great.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, so let's move to the next item, which is our consent agenda. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything on the agenda that any member would like to have removed and discussed separately? All right, then with that, I would ask for the consent agenda items A, B, C, D, and E. All in favor of approval of those items?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and those are all approved. Old business, we have two items here. We have one item, which is the final adoption of our fiscal year 2018-19 budget. So first, we need to move into a public hearing. So with that, I am going to open the public hearing on the fiscal year 2018-19 budget. If there is anyone here who would like to speak to the budget, please go to the podium. And okay, we have similar to our citizens' comments. All right, with that, do I need a vote to go out of the public hearing?
Yes.
All right, do I need a motion? Okay, do I have a motion to exit the public hearing?
So moved.
Second, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we are now out of the public hearing. So with that, do I have a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2018-19 budget for the town of Keel Island?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, conversation?
No.
Stephanie, there is one change in the budget that has been made between the first hearing and the second hearing. Would you just summarize quickly and point out to everybody what that one item was?
At the Ways and Means meeting last month, as well as what was just approved, which was the consideration to amend Island Beach Services contract by adding an additional $1,800 a month, which is a total of $21,600. And this is to cover the lease at 32 Sorrel Road. They are in the process. I'm not sure if they've closed yet. Do you know if, Mr.?
Hasn't sat in.
Okay. They're working on closing the purchasing the property. One of the minority owners of Island Beach Services is venturing out, and he is working with the owner of the property to purchase that. It is where the storage units are at. And if he's successful, and we believe he should be, in closing of purchasing that site, Island Beach Services, as you know, they've been looking for a full-time home for their equipment to be housed. Right now, they're currently using our facilities here. During the winter months, it was fine. They didn't really have a need to, I guess, transport all of it to the beach. Obviously, now during tourist season, they really need to have a location behind the gates, closer to the beach, to be able to house all their equipment, and they have been able to find this location. So they've come to Ways and Means approved and council approved to increase their contract by $1,800 a month to cover this cost. The caveat to that is that while we are putting in the full 21.6, the caveat that was approved is that that amount, the town will not start paying that additional amount until they actually close on the lease. So while the 21.6 will start effective July 1, we may not start paying until whenever they close on the lease. So that is the addition that's reflected in the budget.
And additionally, I think it only goes through February of
Oh, yes,
next
that's correct. It
year,
goes through February.
And then is subject to reapproval.
Right.
And that's what we
Yes.
just approved.
Right.
So-
Yes.
So
It goes
the
through
impact on the
Feb-
budget is that we have upped the total value, the total expense budget by $21,600.
Mm-hmm. But we will not start paying until they close.
Been approved after February.
Right. it's
Right.
only-
Pardon me? Yes, the contract's only, because their contract only runs through February,
Correct.
and then it has to be re-evaluated.
All right, so that's the one change that's been pointed out. Any other comments, questions?
No.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the 2018-19 budget?
Aye.
All right, that has been approved. And that takes us to Town Administrator's Report.
Well, I'm not quite sure if our attorney's going to make it, but so I'll just wait, and if he doesn't, then I can circle back and address some things that he was going to also address under, oh, there he is. But before, I'll let him get settled, but before I go into, I have some comments. I would like to have Mr. Lamio, if he can come up, just to give a update. Councilmember Wilson had asked if he could give an update during my time in regards to the bridge, and so I'll let him do that, and then I'll go into my piece.
Good afternoon. I'll be very short with this. As far as the public works projects that the town is actively working on right now, we have 3 projects. One is a 2-phase project, the bridge and erosion stabilization of the bank side of the outbound lane on the Parkway, where we had damage from the last 2 hurricanes. Phase 1, the bridge, we had an inspection. Every 2 years we inspect the bridge, and it was recommended that we do some minor repair work to that. It's been completed and the bridge is back up and running. The one thing I do not have at this time is that weight on the bridge, the capacity weight. I'm waiting from the engineers for that. The second phase of that project is the stabilization project. And what that entails is there's a green belt walkway right now where the kayakers and the fisher and the crabbers use right now. From that point, about 100 feet down, tying into an existing gabion wall that the town put in about 6 years ago, there's going to be an extended wall put in. The council just finished approving the funds. That's a company by the name of Hydro Enterprises. They will be doing the work. We're now waiting to sign the contract with them and then get a scheduled start date. We don't know yet if it'll be immediate, or we will wait until September till the beach season quiets down and there's not as much disruption to the traffic. The last project that we have going, I'm sorry, the second project is the Parkway resurfacing. We presently have an engineering company doing a report for us. They're looking at the Parkway from the Circle to Beachwalker Drive. This area has not been resurfaced in probably 20 years, and it's starting to show its age now, cracking in some dips. So we're getting a full report on the condition of the roadway. We will go back in and look at the drainage, look at the bridge again, and look at the roadway surface, and then have the repairs made to that. As I said, we're just in the final stages of the engineering report that we should have in the next couple of weeks. The last project that we have, it's not an active project at this time, but the town, in cooperation with the partners, the Timbers projects, the county park, Beachwalker, we're looking at Beachwalker Drive to relieve some of the congestion and traffic on that road. Because it's become so popular lately, the numbers have tripled trying to get into that park, especially on the holidays. We're looking at a possibility of a right turn lane, but at this stage, it's just in the talking stage. We're looking to do it, as I said, as a cooperation between those entities. And that's it for the public works projects. Any questions?
No?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And what I just wanted to do was just bring council up to date on salary compensation that we are currently working on, and that's something that we do every year about this time. So, as you all know, town staff, we start a performance review process about this time of year, and a merit increase is typically applied July 1st of every year. So that process is something that the department heads, as well as myself, we go through and we evaluate staff, and then we come up with a percentage. What is in the current budget and what we ask council to approve is basically an aggregate amount. That amount that was put in the budget for this year was 4%. What happens with the 4% is that each employee probably this year will receive anywhere between 2 to 6%. It will vary between staff. It would depend on their performance, and it stays within that 4% total that was approved. In addition to what we're working on, as you all are aware, as you approved, the Mercer Group completed a compensation study for us this year that we asked to be completed, mainly because we haven't had one done in several years, and we want to know the market competitiveness in terms of the salary and our salary ranges that we have here with the town. Town council several months ago, we did bring before you, and it was approved, and that was the new salary ranges that were adopted as recommended by the Mercer Group study. As well as in that study, we have about 5 employees that was identified as in terms of below the market study that they proposed to us. In that as well, we're doing some regrading, and all this will be presented to staff after the budget today that was approved. One of the things here that, as the Mercer Group was looking at their study, and we asked them to not only look at other municipal agencies or government agencies, we also asked them to look at, and I also looked at our internal entities here in terms of looking at the competitiveness in terms of salary, job function, job responsibility. So what they suggested that the town, in terms of what we should adopt and reflect, is that the salary ranges that were approved, they base that on the autonomy that our staff has here. We have a small staff, and because of that, a number of the employees have to wear various hats. And if you're looking at, for example, a code compliance officer here in Kiowa and their roles and responsibility may not be the same as for someone for the city of Charleston. They have more employees, so they have much more of a narrow focus than our employees here. So they have more autonomy. Our wildlife department, for instance, one of our biologists, Aaron, again, he's out in the field a lot. So when we're looking at trying to compare his salaries, it was tough to go to the state because we're unique in that not a lot of municipalities have biologists. Matter of fact, we couldn't find any. The closest was Hilton Head, and I know I used to work there. Her title is not biologist. She is an environmentalist. But it is tough to try to find, that's all right. It was tough to try to find, even at the state level, someone that had that much autonomy and that large spread in terms of their roles and responsibilities. Also, they looked at the increasing difficulty in terms of attracting employees, not just that Charleston here is a tight market, but also attracting employees to drive out to Kiowa. And so they looked at a number of factors, probably about 3 or 4 factors. So when they put in our responsibility as an employee for that particular job, along with those other factors, then that's how they came up with the salary ranges. So we are aware that we pay a little bit higher in terms of some of the positions compared to our competitors, but there's a reason why we do that. Because we like to be able to attract, the best and brightest, but we also realize that we do have some challenges in terms of our location and also with this tight market here in Charleston. So for council, some of the things that the mayor and I had wanted to make sure that we have highlighted in the minutes and that you all know what we're working on. I said again, the aggregate salary increase spending this year is going to be just under 4%. We have 4% in the budget, and again, that's going to vary based on the employee's performance. We're going to have a narrow range of increases. It's going to range between 2 and 6%. But again, most of the employees are paid at the midpoint or just below. We have very few that's bumping up against the max. Also, and as I pointed out in the study, we have, it was determined that we had about 5 employees that fell below the minimum. 4 of the employees, their recommendation or what we'll look at, and of course there's nothing that we require approval through council based on our ordinance, but we just want to bring you all up to speed, is that 4 employees, we will be looking at probably bringing them up to the minimum. That would include also their merit. 1 employee with the merit increase, that would put that person over the minimum, so we're just looking at 4. And that adjustment amount would be between $15,000 and $17,000 to bring those 4 employees to at least close or at their minimum points. And then last, I'm working with the mayor and the town attorney, and we will, before anything is actually released, we will bring it to council for a vote, and that is we're looking at providing the mayor providing, council providing a small pot of money for myself, between $3,000 to $4,000 for a small one-time cash reward to recognize any outstanding achievement by an employee. And that is something that will be part of the budget. And all of these costs that I'm referring to are not, of course, and we didn't ask for additional money in the budget. My goal, and I should be able to find that money within the current budget. If not, you will know in advance, and if we have, and I will put in a request to do some sort of budget amendment. But again, all this cost should be covered. I should be able to find that in the budget that was just approved. But other than that, that is all that I wanted to bring up to speed on. Mayor, would you like to add to any of that, or if any council members have any questions?
Any questions?
No? Okay.
And you do, and Dwayne, you believe the last piece, which is this $3,000 to $4,000, that I would like to have Stephanie the authority to have a pot of money that over the year, as she, and she doesn't have to spend it. I hope she sees enough good things she'll want to, but she'll have the ability to provide a $200 cash award or a $700 cash award as she sees during the year occurrences that merit recognition. Do you think we need to approve that, or is that a action we have the capability to do? Do we need to get council approval to do that or not?
There'd be no harm in doing that. Excuse me. No harm in doing that, and I have sent a draft motion to Stephanie's attention. In an abundance of caution, I just think it's good to have council aware of that, and that motion has been forwarded for consideration.
So we can deal with it next month. We can actually deal with it.
And I don't have anything else, and I know Mr. Green have a couple things during my report that he would like to provide council some updates on.
Yes, and I want to thank the mayor and council for stretching out the meeting a bit for me to get here. I had a mediation this morning, so I got to enjoy the traffic from Mount Pleasant to Kiowa, which cooperated for me. But there's two things that council asked legal counsel to follow up on during the past month. The first was the filing of a lawsuit against Webster Rogers, which was the former auditor for the town, for not notifying the town of fraudulent activity that was going on during the years of the former town administrator and former town treasurer, 2011 to 2015. That lawsuit was filed in Charleston County Court of Common Pleas. It was served on counsel for Webster Rogers, which is Carlock Copeland. They're a local law firm that does a good bit of professional negligence. I have been in contact with Doug McMillan, who is the attorney who was handling that on behalf of the insurance carrier, and council members have been kind enough to give me a list of damages that would be included, which we included those in the draft complaint, which was then filed. So we had a plea hearing in federal district court for the former town administrator Kenneth Gunnels, former treasurer Kenneth Gunnels. That was on the 27th, and it was before federal district court Judge Duffy, Michael Duffy. He went through a litany of items in the indictment, all of which Gunnels admitted to, and admitted that there was a scheme between he and the town administrator to defraud the town, and pled guilty to the single count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. That sworn plea was entered on the record. The judge did give him additional time to explain how this came about, and he placed much of the blame at the feet of the town administrator, who notably has not pled yet but is still in negotiations with the U.S. attorney. That may be soon forthcoming. The sentencing stage of the proceedings will not happen until probably around the fall, but we will be notified, and the town will have an opportunity to take part in that. The attorney for Webster Rogers did request a transcript of that, and of course the guilty plea is a large factor in us having to prove that fraud did in fact occur. The fact that the town administrator and the town former town treasurer will have likely pled guilty to fraudulent activity, which Webster Rogers was hired to detect. So
those are felonies, right?
both are felonies, correct. And the likely outcome, I think we've all discussed it, is that they will have a probationary period for which to pay that amount, any restitution. They're not likely to serve any jail time, but that's still all up in the air. The judge is not bound to take any recommendations from the U.S. attorney. This is a first offense for both of them, but the maximum penalty that they could carry for wire fraud is 20 years. So that definitely gives an incentive to plea. Going forward, we are going to be negotiating